Sakurai has already included so many different characters in the Super Smash Bros., including the DLC, but who could be next, and what's my favorite Super Smash Bros. Game? All this and more on this week's episode of Question Lithium. Hey Nintendo fans and collectors, Lithium here from my channel Nintendo Collecting. The question for this episode is from Marky and his family. Thanks so much for asking your questions, Marky. First of all, he's asking, what is my favorite Super Smash Bros. Game? Who do I main, and who would I like to see in the franchise? My personal favorite Super Smash Bros. Game is Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and I'll tell you why. This game was really popular when I was in college and university. We were playing this game almost every single day for hours, and not only was I playing it at my place, but I was also playing it at my buddies'. We had over 2,000 hours on that one system. We made a course ourselves, because you could design your own course, that was called the Chicken Coop. So that was basically just a boxed off area with one small area that you could hit someone out of on the top left. And it was really fun to play through that with all of my friends all the time. And just honestly, it had so many characters in the game, and I thought it was pretty well balanced. If you were a really good character playing Smash Brothers and you've played it for years, and someone who is new to the franchise, that you could just maybe hold your own and battle, and it was lots of fun. I don't think it's the best one in the series, but it's my personal favorite. My second place game would probably be Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Next, out of all the Super Smash Bros. Characters, who do I main? Well, in each game, it's kind of a little bit different. So if I'm playing the original Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64, I'll tend to play as Link, and if not Link, then I'll tend to play as Fox. Melee is more of the same thing, but I'll throw in Pikachu every once in a while as well. But then when you get to Brawl and beyond, so Brawl, Wii U, 3DS, and Ultimate, I tend to play as a character that has a counter. Now the counters are a little bit cheap. When someone attacks you, it automatically attacks, but I usually use Marth for that reason. I do get a lot of kills whenever I play as Marth because he has such a heavy attack, and also I sometimes play as Ike. If you stand in the middle of a lot of people attacking, especially in Ultimate, if you're ever playing 8-player in any of these games, you will get a lot of attacks out with counters, and it's definitely cheap. It kind of makes up for how I'm not that great at the game as compared to other people. I also sometimes play as King K. Rool, but I'm not nearly as good as I would like to be. I then also play as Pokemon Trainer, and I play a little bit as Ganondorf, but I tend to not have a very good recovery with that character, but he does dish out such strong attacks. I would also love to get better at Meta Knight. I'm just not that great at the character, and a lot of tournaments ban Meta Knight, so it's maybe not someone that I want to use all that often, but I do think it's fun playing as Meta Knight. Crazy that those characters are finally in the game. Let me know who your main is, and also, who is your worst character to play as in Super Smash Bros.? My personal worst is probably Jigglypuff, dating all the way back, almost 20 years. Whenever I play as Jigglypuff, I accidentally always put myself to sleep, I leave myself exposed, and then I die quite instantly. So normally, I'm playing as Marth or Ike as much as I possibly can. Now for the main question, what characters would I like to see added to Super Smash Bros.? I'm going to go through my top 10 picks, and at the end I'll give some honorable mentions as well. But be sure, let me know, who do you want to see in Super Smash Bros.? Who do you think is going to be the next DLC character? And do you think Sakurai will push to be over 100 characters? Because we're getting really close. I think we're going to be in the 90s with the next DLCs that are released. First up, I'm going to start with the most likely characters that I think will be added to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm going to start with Rayman. So Rayman Origins is one of the better games on the Nintendo Wii, and Rayman was really popular in the past. Games like Rayman 2, The Great Escape I have for the Nintendo 64. This character has been iconic for almost 20 years, probably over 20 years in the gaming industry. So I really think that this character would fit in well with Smash Brothers. I do think he has enough of a following. I think it would be really interesting just to see his two hands kind of floating in dead space. I think that would be really cool to see Rayman actually fighting. And honestly, if you haven't tried out these games in the past, you should definitely pick them up and try them out. So Rayman, I would love to see this character in Smash Bros. For a few reasons. One, it brings another character from another franchise, obviously, to the mix. Two, it brings something from Ubisoft over to Super Smash Bros., which just might mean that there could be more characters from Ubisoft in the future if we do get Rayman in the game. And three, I love seeing these kind of characters kind of combining with Mario characters. I always thought it would be unreal to have someone in a Mario game like Sonic, and now we're getting characters like Sephiroth and Cloud and so many different franchises, not just Sonic, like Mega Man, coming over to Super Smash Bros. So I would like to see kind of an oddball thing. I think a lot of people are predicting Rayman, but who knows if we'll actually get this or not, because Sakurai tends to surprise us with a lot of the characters. The second most likely pick for me is Spyro, of course, everyone's favorite purple dragon. This is Enter the Dragonfly on the Nintendo GameCube, where I first got my taste of playing Spyro games. There's also a few other GameCube games like A Hero's Tale, but honestly, this purple dragon is a perfect candidate, I think, for Super Smash Bros. I'm not sure if this will make the mass audience that happy, but there is a huge push, and we're honestly almost running out of really cool characters to be in Super Smash Bros. That are kind of like, I want to almost call them family-friendly characters. Not everything Sakurai puts in is family-friendly, but most of them are, and this is another huge character in the gaming industry that I think would be perfect for the series. Not only does this dragon breathe fire, but it also breathes bubble breath and various attacks like that. Obviously, you could have Spyro flying in, so there's tons of different attacks that you can bring from all the various Spyro games from the past. There are a few dragons, I want to call them kind of dragons, that already exist in Super Smash Brothers. Of course, we have Charizard, which is the #1 giant orange dragon, and there's a few other characters that are like kind of similar to this. So like, I'm not sure if Ridley's really considered a dragon. Ridley's more of an alien type different species. But honestly, Purple Dragon, I think it would be a nice good change from all the other characters, from most of them, and I think it could live fine in the series along with Charizard. I know they're both kind of fire-breathing dragons, but that's fine. There's tons of characters that have a sword, looking at you, Fire Emblem, that just have a sword basically and have small changes to the character. So I would personally love to see Spyro also in Super Smash Bros. I think that would be a really cool addition. The third most likely character, in my opinion, from my list is Travis Touchdown from the No More Heroes series. The original game was out on the Nintendo Wii, as well as the sequel, also again from Ubisoft, kind of really similar to Rayman from Ubisoft as well. So I think if we get one character, it'd be even more likely that we get another one. Let me know, actually, is any character in Smash Bros. Already from Ubisoft? Because I feel like there is, but I might just be overlooking one of them. So Travis Touchdown essentially uses something that looks like a lightsaber, and the games are absolutely over the top. There's a third No More Heroes game that is also in this series, so you can check out that one. I think that's one's coming to the Switch if it's not out already. Honestly, these are great pickups on the Nintendo Wii. The franchise is getting more popular. The original game right here you can probably find for less than 20 bucks, but No More Heroes 2 is probably over $50 right now, $50 US, and it's getting way more and more popular. I hope this character is big enough on Nintendo franchise consoles for Sakurai to consider putting Travis Touchdown in the series of games. So it is a little bit more of a mature game, as you can see here even on the back. It's not quite as mature as Mad World is, another great standout gem on the Nintendo Wii that's a little bit more mature. But I think Travis Touchdown would fit in really well in the series, and come on, we're going to have a character, maybe, if he's in Smash Brothers, with like a lightsaber almost, because I don't think we're ever going to get Star Wars characters in Super Smash Brothers. I'm not sure if I want Star Wars characters in Super Smash Bros., but I do really want Travis Touchdown, and I think it would be really cool, even though it's from a mature series. I think it's almost... I'm not saying this is likely, but it's the third most likely character on my list, but who knows from Sakurai, like I said. Alright, all the other characters that I'm going to talk about, I have no idea how likely they are, but they're just my own fun types of characters. So again, if you haven't commented below, who do you predict next, please make sure you do so. At number 4 for me is Amaterasu. That is the character right here that looks like a wolf. It's kind of an embodiment, essentially it says right here, of a Japanese sun god, of course. Now, this game I have factory sealed on the Nintendo Wii, but I do have I had an open copy that I played back in the past. This game won Game of the Year on some series lists. Honestly, it's basically like Legend of Zelda, but this game came out, I think, the same year as Twilight Princess, but this won Game of the Year on some people's lists. It's kind of interesting that you do have a wolf here, really similar to Twilight Princess has a wolf, but this game has dungeons that are kind of similar in the style, but the artwork in this game is like the old school Japanese culture melded with kind of impressionist paintings, I want to call them. It's almost like watermark paintings. The game is gorgeous, and the character looks gorgeous as well, and there's there's a lot of different kind of little gameplay mechanics that we could use from a wolf in Super Smash Bros. I think it would be really, really neat. So this game has been ported several times over into not only HD, but I think it's also out in 4K on PlayStation, PC, and Xbox, but it did originally come out on the Nintendo system as well. I think originally it was a PS2 game, and then it was ported over the Nintendo Wii. So the character, there's several other games in the series. I think there's Okami Den, which is on, I think, the Nintendo DS. This is the only one I own in the franchise so far, but I think the character would fit in well into the Super Smash Bros. Series, and it would also make more people play these kinds of games. So I think Okami has a lot to earn from this, and I think Capcom has a lot to get out of this if the character can come to Super Smash Bros. Have a wolf fighting in the game. We have Pokemon and different kind of close enough to animal-like characters, but not too many other than the Pokemon that are actually animals, other than, I guess, we have Isabelle, of course, from Animal Crossing, and we have Duck Hunt Dog, and the duck, of course. And then Piranha Plant, not really an animal. There's not that many animals. If you want to call Yoshi an animal, I guess. So really, I think it would be cool to have a wolf. It would be a nice, different mechanic, and I think Sakurai would have a lot of fun coming up with all the different attacks that you could use with Amaterasu in the game. Tough word to pronounce. Really cool. That's my number 4 pick. My 5th pick is from the Kingdom Hearts series. This is Sora right here. So this is another character from Square Enix. There is some sort of bridge that already exists between Sakurai and bringing over Square Enix characters from Final Fantasy. We have Cloud, we also have Sephiroth, so I do think that this is a kind of likely pick, and a lot of people love this gaming series. I don't think that Sakurai would bring someone over like Mickey Mouse or Goofy, but I do think the protagonist from this series right here with the spiky hair almost reminds me of Shulk for some reason with the character design. Just, I guess, the red with the spiky hair reminds me a decent amount of Shulk from the Xenoblade series. So this would satisfy a lot of fans. It would kind of be out of left field a little bit because this game series, like I said, isn't that predominantly on Nintendo consoles, but I think that doesn't really matter anymore. As long as it's a really popular character, and as long as there's some sort of push for it. So I do think Sakurai might bring Sora from the Kingdom Hearts series. I would be happy, and this is a franchise that I would love to spend more time with. It's just there's not that many games out on Nintendo systems, as I said. So let me know what your thoughts are on the Kingdom Hearts series and what you think of Sora coming over to the Super Smash Bros. Series if it did happen. At number 6 from Platinum Games and the Wonderful 101, someone like Unite Red, as well as all the other Unite characters kind of combined. So this game was ported over, I think, to PC, to the PS4, also to the Nintendo Switch, and here's the original version on the Wii U. It's a game that didn't sell that great on the Wii U, well, not many games sold that well on the Wii U, but it was a really popular game and has a cult following, and it's such an interesting character kind of to put into the game because, like I said, all these characters kind of combine together into various different items. The final Smash would be really interesting that Sakurai could come up with something really cool where they all unite together from the franchise. Also, if you haven't checked out the Wonderful 101, it's basically 100 heroes, they face pure evil, and then they unite, but there's 100 in one of them, basically. So unite morph into various things. In this, you can basically get together and you draw different shapes to morph your squad into like a whip, into a hammer, into a sword, and various things like that. So it's crazy action game, and it's from kind of Nintendo's subsidiary a little bit with Platinum Games. They're kind of partnered with Nintendo anyways. So I do think this is a semi-likely candidate, and I would love to see this kind of character in Super Smash Bros. Because you got, you know, Wonder Red, Wonder Blue, Wonder Yellow, Wonder Green, Wonder Pink, and all of them could be in Super Smash Bros. Kind of get together. It would almost kind of be like Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard, which you do see back there, except it wouldn't be like transferring between all of them at all times. It might just be like when you go to an attack, you can see the various characters on screen together, and I even am trying to think of a recovery with these characters, because like they could unite together, and it would be really neat to see these characters kind of used by Sakurai and used to their fullest potential in Super Smash Bros. So that's my number 6th pick. My 7th pick is from this game right here, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Now, we already have Young Link, Adult Link, and Toon Link in Super Smash Bros., but I think it would be really neat if they had something like the Squirtle, Ivysaur, and the Charizard changing character. So hear me out. If you could have Link put on the Deku mask and fight as Deku Link and use his various maybe recovery move, because you can use the different propellers as it leaves to kind of fly back, then you could maybe change out to be Zora Link. And Zora Link would have various attacks and of course could throw almost like the boomerang cutters that come back to Zora Link. And then you could also change out into Goron Link, and Goron Link can turn into like a rock and roll around the arena or roll around where you're fighting. I think that would be so neat and kind of just be a very different thing that Sakurai would have a lot of fun. Now hear me out, this final smash of course would be Fierce Deity Link from that franchise. That would be such a cool character to have, and not only would that be cool, but I would also love to see Majora's Mask in the game. I just don't think that's ever going to happen, but something like this might be unique enough to Sakurai that we could have that kind of 3 character swap out that he hasn't done, I think, since we've seen, like I said, the Squirtle, Ivysaur, Charizard combination. So that would be really cool. If we can't get that character, then I would love to have Demise. Demise would be so cool to get from Skyward Sword. But my 7th pick is that change out Link with all 3 different mask variations. My 8th pick is completely for my own personal reasons, but I think Paper Mario would be a really interesting character to have in the franchise. We do have a few Marios in the game already. You have the original Mario, you have Dr. Mario, so you could definitely get another character in that's pretty much the same. Link, you have Young Link, you have the original Link, you even have Toon Link, so there's 3 Links in the game, so why not another Mario character? I'm not sure if this would make fans upset or pleased. They would be like, oh, like another Mario character, but I would honestly like it more than another Fire Emblem character. So I think this is kind of a side choice that could come from Sakurai. The attacks would just be maybe more hammer based, and also from the previous few games, you have different items that you were using in Color Splash. You had various items that you could use with cards. In Sticker Star, of course, there were stickers, but then if you go back all the way to something like Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 and Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door on the Nintendo GameCube, you wore badges in these games. So maybe you could like find badges throughout the gameplay, throughout while you're fighting, and use various badges as some of your special attacks. Maybe you could even use some different like timed action presses. So if someone's attacking you, you could kind of maybe counter the attack if you time it really well. And if you do, then your damage could be increased just like it was in these games with all of the action commands. I think that would be a really cool different thing. Also, because the character's made of paper, that kind of gives you some more attacks that you could, you know, turn sideways and maybe dodge attacks. Or you could roll Mario up like you do in this game and turn him into like a rolling object, or you could also turn him into an airplane, you could turn him into a boat depending on the stage for recovery. It would kind of be cool if Mario's off stage and then he turns into a paper airplane to try and recover. So I think that would be really neat. There's so many other characters in the game that turn into paper in the Paper Mario franchise, so of course like maybe Luigi could be like an alternate skin but still have all the same attacks, just as a paper different character. So I do think if they do this right, they could make the character a lot more unique from Mario and unique enough from Dr. Mario that it would be worthy to be in the franchise. And Paper Mario's been selling really well, especially of course with the Origami King, which was a really good game. It's not an RPG, but it's an action adventure RPG, kind of all melded together on the franchise, on the Switch I should say. So Paper Mario for Smash Brothers, I'm in. I would love that. Love the franchise. I wish it would return to its roots, but it did feel really good playing it on the Nintendo Switch with Origami King. My picks for 9 and 10 are from franchises that I actually don't own a single game for because they're not franchises on Nintendo systems. So who would I like to have to add to all of these different characters in Super Smash Bros.? I think, first of all, Master Chief would be exceptional from the Halo franchise. Halo has been monstrous, and I do think Microsoft is willing to work with other companies more and more. They're kind of taking a step back from making games, and they're having a lot of games ported over to their systems, and they haven't just been focusing on making their own games as much in the recent years. So that maybe makes a bridge that Nintendo could have and Sakurai could have with bringing over him. We never thought we would see someone like Snake in Super Smash Bros., and it would be really cool to see Master Chief make it into the franchise. Of course, it would be a run and gun type character. There aren't too many characters in Super Smash Bros. That use guns, but it's not unheard of course. Even Samus is always using her arm cannon, which is essentially like a gun in the franchise, and there are a few other characters that are using gun-like objects, so it's not too crazy to think about that, especially with Snake with all the explosives that that character uses. And lastly, my 10th character would be Dante from Devil May Cry franchise. I think that's such a cool character, and the franchise has been so good for so long. Devil May Cry is a franchise that I watched one of my roommates when I was in university or college. I watched him play through the entire game and I was enthralled. I didn't feel like the game was that much for me. It does remind me a lot of the Bayonetta series. Right here we have the Player 1 and Player 2 of Bayonetta. So Dante would be so cool to be in Super Smash Bros. And there's so many other characters that I could talk about as well that aren't from Nintendo franchises, but I think Dante would be a really nice fit in the game. Now, just a few other throw-offs, because I've already mentioned my 10 that I would love to see in Smash Brothers, is maybe another character from Sonic. I think Dr. Robotnik would be so cool from the Sonic franchise. I'm just not sure if Sakurai wants to bring over other villains from the franchises if Sonic's already represented, but I do think that would be really neat to get someone like Dr. Robotnik or Tails from the Sonic franchise. That would be really neat. But let me know, what are your thoughts on my top 10 or 11 characters that I discussed? Do you think any of them are really likely? I should also mention, maybe, before I forget, that Shantae would be a huge pick for a lot of people to be in the franchise as well, and those games were actually re-released just recently, and to get Shantae in Super Smash Bros. Would be really cool. I'm just not sure if that's as likely as some of the characters that I already talked about, but I could be completely wrong. We could all be surprised. And the other one that I would love to see is Geno from Super Mario RPG. I just don't think that's happening, especially with all the different kind of costume swaps that you can wear and get Geno anyways already in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So thank you so much for asking your question. I really appreciate it. I hope all things are well. Marky, you and your family, I really appreciate it. And hey, anyone else, if you guys have a question for Q Lithium for next time's episode, feel free to ask below as a comment, and maybe I'll feature it in an upcoming video. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to fill that like bucket by clicking the like button, obviously, below the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go collect them all, keep smiling while gaming, and good luck playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimates.